Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gentlemen, you know, I could probably fill like this roster here with reports from GAO or Inspector Generals about a problem we had in FAA where organizational design authorization was given to Boeing to have inspectors review the work and work with the FAA. Now, that is still the system we have today, but what we found is that there were those who were retaliating against those ODA members and basically saying, you know, you might lose your job or this might happen if you take a strong enforcement measure. So we learned in aviation that was a big mistake. And so we've corrected that by passing a new FAA law that basically protects those ODA members from retaliation. This Department of Transportation has issued a new rule basically saying that you can retaliate against the inspectors in your agencies. So I want to know from you whether you believe that you are going to protect these inspectors from that kind of retaliation. Will you commit to being a strong policeman on the beat and making sure there's no political interference at your agencies on those inspectors?
Senator Cantwell, thank you for the question. I can tell you that throughout my career in law enforcement, I mentioned earlier that enforcement is key, and making sure that the bad actors, as was mentioned here, are dealt with accordingly. And the inspectors and officers that work within FMCSA have a diligent job to do in making sure that they can carry out the missions and place these bad actors out. And it's extremely important to me that we make sure that we do that and we work together collaboratively with them and give them the tools in the toolbox that they need to address these issues that you're referring to.
So no political retaliation?
Senator, I'm looking forward to working with them and making sure that they're able to do their job, and I think that's what's important.
Thank you.
Yeah, from my experience working with the fantastic investigators, both in the Office of Vehicle Safety Compliance and the Office of Defects Investigation, you know, you really need a robust, honest, back and forth relationship with them. We need the data. They need to analyze the data to determine whether or not there might be a defects or non-compliance. And so ensuring that level of trust is critical.
And making sure they're not harassed by somebody.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Roberti.
Senator Cantwell, I would say that in my history at PHMSA, the inspection enforcement teams know how important I think what they do is to carrying out the mission of safety, and I certainly would impose no chilling effects on them exercising their duty, subject to oversight. My oversight as administrator to make sure that we are fair, transparent, and impartial in the way we cite operators for violations of federal standards.
Quickly, Mr. Morrison, could you, because I have a question from Mr. Roberti, what are your priorities in setting regulations? The emergency brake issues for trucks. What are your first priorities?
I think first need to get in. I'm not in the building now, and so I need to make sure that I get up to speed with the agency.
Is there anything that bothers you right now that you think we need a regulation on?
I think one thing we need to explore, and I mentioned this in my testimony, during the first term, we had worked on autonomous vehicle safety framework, taking comment from the public, working with industry to get a sense of the state of technology. I think the state of technology has moved forward now, and I think we're at the point now where we need to start looking to find ways we can build public trust, and that includes guidance documents and regulation once we're at that point.
Yeah, I'll ask some more for the record on that. But Mr. Roberti, you mentioned the cybersecurity problem, and you know pipelines are now. You don't threaten the United States anymore by, well, you might, but you might. Sending a sub into our waters or a plane into our airspace. You basically use the pipeline system or some other system to cause failure. So what do we need to do to accelerate our protections of our U.S. pipelines?
Well, the cybersecurity jurisdiction resides within the Department of Homeland Security. During my last time at PHMSA, we negotiated and executed an interagency, interdepartmental agreement to help bolster our presence in control rooms working with the Transportation Security Administration. We also engaged directly with the Department of Energy. I think that across the federal landscape, there needs to be full engagement, information sharing, and thinking about how we can leverage each other's resources. And PHMSA has inspectors out in the field. TSA doesn't, so we work to partner with them to bring more visibility and put an eye on some of the important factors of what operators should be doing on the pipeline front. Collaborating with...
Doesn't Colonial tell us we need some sort of task force? And you mentioned the private sector. I'm a big believer in encouraging that dialogue back and forth. But the problem is here you're way down in the bowels of DOT, and yet this is a big infrastructure issue for the U.S. And how do we get it elevated so that we are putting the best cyber minds onto this particular task?
Yes, so as I said in my testimony, this is a top priority for me. The threat vectors are always, they're constant and they're always changing and they're always evolving. I think what you need are people who come into these positions to have that at top of mind. Those are the things that should wake any administrator up at 2 a.m. That should drive extra activity towards coordinating with other federal agencies, the FBI, the Department of Energy, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, the Department of Homeland Security, so that we have constant information sharing and to be thinking about in the field, both from a physical and cyber perspective, where is the next wave of attack going to be based upon what we have witnessed. But remember this, in my experience, I have a lot of experience with this, working in prior positions. It is never the moment that the attack of today is an indicator of future threats, but does not necessarily replicate what that next threat vector and attack will be. And that's where we need tremendous vigilance. There's not enough.
We're way out of time, but that is a very important, I'm glad you have such fervor on that point. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.